simplistic summary of, like, for me and for us at Mosaic, why Jesus? Because I became kind of like, I don't know, I hope you don't, like, Google me. Like, there are a lot of people who don't like me, you know, and, you know, I'm put into this, like heretic category, because I quoted for making a statement that said that I am committed to the destruction of the religion of Christianity. I said it. And I'm not saying they made that up. I actually said it, you know, but I'm older now, and I know how to say the same thing in a less volatile way. Now, I would still say it the same way. See, because I hate what religion does to people. I hate how it coerces people through guilt and shame. I was born inherently an anarchist. I felt like all institutions and governments were evil, and I just wanted to destroy everything to set humanity free. I understand now that institutions are just a reflection of the human soul, and that you can't fix the world until you change people. But what I began to realize is that what I hated about religions is that they all basically tell us, you know, whatever our end game is, you know, if it's God or enlightenment, that could be like our goal, right? Or it could be heaven. Some people, it's less about God, more about upgrading location, you know. And so if it's enlightenment or God or heaven or Nirvana, not the band, and this doesn't really write very well. It's all the same. It's like, because in the end, you're trying to get to a state of being, or get to God, or get to heaven, and wow, is it me or does Erwin try the white? Try the white. Okay. What's that? Sorry. And yeah, and so if it's a God, so then people, you know, and there's lots of gods, right? There's like the Islamic God and the Hebraic God and the you know, Christian God, you know, maybe the same God, but you know, everybody has like different strategies. And so they all give you, okay, these are the things you've got to do to get to God. And so if you're a Muslim, this is what you do, and this, if you're, you know, Jewish, this is what you do, and if you're a Christian, this is what you do. And then you have these steps to get to God that can be really, really pretty tedious and overwhelming and frustrating. And my friends who are Muslim will always ask them, I mean, you're so devout, you pray a lot more than I do, you do a lot more religious activities than I do. How are you and Allah doing? And they'll always say to me, only Allah knows. Like, no matter what I do, only Allah knows. And it's a really harsh place to be. But by the way, that's a lot of like Catholicism, it's a lot of like being Baptist. It's just that Christianity, without what we're going to talk about, is a really destructive and coercive and manipulative religion. Just like every other religion, because humans control these things. And with Buddhism, I mean, I have a lot of friends who are Buddhists, and they're trying to achieve enlightenment. And so they give you these different paths and things you have to do to move toward enlightenment. But what I think is really fascinating is that this is still the same thing. You got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do this. And what's really hard is that you can't even get done in this life. You have to like be reincarnated over and over again. Now, Americans have made reincarnation like really cool. You know, like, wow, you know, I used to be Marie Antoinette. You know, but Buddhists don't make reincarnation really cool. Buddhists understand reincarnation to be a curse, to be a torment. And because eventually you have to get out of get this karma out of you, and you have to move toward nothingness, and you have to move toward the elimination of all desire. And so it's really an eternity of torment until you cease to exist and move toward nothingness. But still, like, this is what you got to do, and it's the same way, you know. Even when people say, well, there's so many different paths, yeah, but all those paths have one thing in common. It's what you do to get there. Wow, white was a great suggestion, Carlos. And see, clearly none of these work. White did work for a while. Thank you. But this is the difference. It's like with Jesus. What I was so intrigued by Jesus. Is that he doesn't give us a strategy for how we can get to him. He tells us his strategy of how he got to us. And this is the essence of what this word grace means. It means that you don't need Mosaic to get to God. I just want to be really clear about that. We're not essential. I mean, I think we're essential, you know, in a sense for community and for health, but you can find it other places too. Mosaic doesn't have like the secret code, and it's Jesus who has what. And the difference between Jesus and every other world religion, and every other religion, every philosophy that tells us how to get this end thing that we want, is that Jesus says, no, it's not about what you do, it's about what I do. It's not about what you did, it's about what I did. And what he's saying is that through his death on the cross, instead of giving us a path that we have to climb to get to him, he created the path to which he comes to us. That if God exists, this would make the most sense to me. If God exists, it doesn't make sense to me that we would be more ambitious than God to connect. Anything that says that God is less ambitious than us to bring us together, to me, is immediately eliminated, because it's then a tool for manipulation and coercion. I mean, think about how dangerous this is. What Jesus says is that he has done everything necessary for you and God to live in relationship. He's done everything necessary for you to experience life and to know his unconditional love. I mean, wouldn't you want to hold something back so you could get us to do good things? I mean, God so believes in the transforming power of love that he basically wiped out the power of rules, wiped out the power of laws, and wiped out the power of judgment and punishment. It says, if you will receive my love, love will be the singular unifying principle of your life. And for me, that was what was so profoundly attractive about Jesus. Because it made sense to me, if God existed, he was going to care more about the relationship than me. That if we're supposed to have a relationship with God, the one who's in power should be the one who actually acts on behalf of the one who's powerless. Doesn't make sense the way we talk about it. Even when we talk about things like, what's God's will for my life? I don't know, because God's like so mysterious and he's always so elusive. He wants to punish you for doing things you didn't know you're supposed to do. And I think we have this view of God as malevolent and uncaring and indifferent to us. And what we are convinced of here at Mosaic is that you are the object of God's love. That the unifying principle of everything God has done is love. That God acts out of love. That he created out of love. That God is relational, and so he created us for relationship. Which, by the way, the entire universe is relational. The entire universe is interconnected and designed for relationship. It shouldn't surprise us because the universe is reflective of the nature of God. The reason you as a human being are designed for relationship is because you're designed by God. And what we really hope that somehow you'll come to see is that there's nothing that you can do to earn love that is real. All you can do with real love is receive it. And that's why Jesus came. And the cross was always like this really interesting thing for me, because strategically it's kind of troubling, right? Because why would Jesus die now? So that we could see it and be a part of it. And yet, what physics is teaching us is that a certain action in a certain time and place has an effect on the entire environment. That you don't have to have the same thing happen everywhere. It has to happen in the right place for everything to be effective. And what the scriptures tell us is that God understood the exact time and the exact place to have the exact right thing happen so that all of humanity could live. And I love this because what Jesus said is that I be lifted up, I will draw all men to myself. So I have this great confidence that just you ever taken a drug for the wrong thing? In Africa, I had a friend who was a nurse, and the children were dehydrated, so their skulls were swollen in. Do you know that happens? And so she would give them shots for dehydration, but the mothers would say or pills for dehydration. They would go, no, you have to do something about their head. And she kept saying, oh, don't worry, these pills, if you just give them every day, it'll fix it. And the mothers would not leave. So you know what she started doing? She took Pepto-Bismol, which is bright pink, against these really, really beautifully dark baby I'm putting the Pepto on their heads and saying, okay, it's going to get better. Just keep giving them the pills, which will help too. And the mothers would leave so happy because the Pepto was on their heads and the swelling, the cave will eventually heal. And they believed the Pepto was what would heal them. Because they didn't understand that the pills that dealt with dehydration was actually what they needed. See, because every disease has its proper cure. And the disease of humanity is the brokenness in our relationship between God and between each other. And we want the Pepto, which is religion. And God wants to heal the dehydration. He wants to deal with the problem. And that's what the death of Jesus and the cross and the resurrection are. Go, how can that fix us? Okay, you need the Pepto. Because you think somehow religion is going to make you better. But what you really need is the life that Jesus wants. So let me stop here and see if you have any questions as we go forward. Sure, tell us.
My name's John. I have a question. How do you get to a place where you genuinely desire a relationship with God? Especially if you're coming from a place without like hardship or longing or brokenness.
Wow, you've had a pretty nice life. First of all, congratulations. I guess I could just hope that you experience more pain. And, I have a friend named Ken Blanchard. I don't know if you've heard of him. He wrote a book called The One-Man Manager, which sold like a gazillion million books, and he's like sick rich now. He was a Harvard professor when he wrote the book, and he did not believe in God. He was, I think, in his late 40s when he wrote The One-Man Manager, and it's, I don't know, like sold 10 million or something like that. He told me, I came to faith in Jesus not because of failure or pain, but because of success. He goes, I stopped and I thought, this book isn't that good. He goes, it's not that good. It shouldn't be selling this many millions. I shouldn't be suddenly have all this wealth and opportunity. He said, actually, success brought him to God. They realized that God was doing something good in his life, that it was up to him to acknowledge it and become an object or an instrument of good in the world. And so it depends on different people, when you say. But the funny thing about passion is that when you say, how can you have more passion to, connect to God? And is that the only way you really get over an old love is a new love. So, one is that you have kind of options. You can be apathetic and not be passionate about anything. So I kind of ask you, what are you really, really passionate about in life? Nothing, right? See, that's what I thought. Because, I'm looking inside of your soul. And what I see is that it isn't that you don't have passion for God, it's that you don't have passion. And what you're looking for is something that you care enough about to make you get up in the morning to want to live. Would that be accurate? And so I have one great news. You're exactly right. You were not born to live an apathetic life. You're not designed to live without passion. So I have some real practical things. One is, you ever been around a fan? I'm a Clipper fan. I don't like taking people that won't for 2 hours pretend they're a Clipper fan. Because I'm a Clipper fan, right? But when I'm around fans, I start actually cheering on the team more. You ever notice that? When you're around people who are passionate, you'll become more passionate. So what I would say is the great danger of not having passion is you're going to surround yourself at the same level of passion where your pilot's kind of on low. So what I would encourage you to do is take the risk of getting around 4 or 5 guys who are intensely passionate, almost uncomfortably passionate about life. Not even just about God. Okay, we'll get there too, right? But just about life, about anything, ping pong, whatever, these people have strange passions, right? But get around people with passions and let their passions begin to fuel yours. Are you willing to do that? All right. Is Jamar there? Jamar, okay, and Josh. Josh and Jamar, I want you guys to meet, okay? Because Jamar's a pretty passionate guy. Would you say Jamar?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if he's not passionate enough to say, hey, look, he's not really bringing the level of passion. Can we both find people more passionate? Because what helped me in my life is just getting around people, and I say this is true in everything.
Whenever you want to become more something, get around people who are already that more of everything. And then I just think, honestly, I think serving does that. Like, if you just start, like, stepping out of a comfort zone just to serve other people, and you watch, like, how their lives are changed by your activity, it does something inside of you, you know? And, but I think, Josh, you are where a lot of Americans are. How old are you? 29. You know what a lot of freedom does? It actually creates apathy. Because you don't have to fight for the things a lot of people have to fight for. And because you don't have to fight for them, you never have to develop that internal pathos that says, do or die, I'm giving it all I got. One of my theories about American soccer, why we're so lousy, and is because soccer around the world was born out of poverty. You know, for a lot of the countries of the best. See, when you're Brazilian, that ball may be all you have. Or Argentina, that's all you got. And see, soccer came out of the suburbs in America. And so it came out of a culture of people like, hey, you know, afterwards we're going to go get lunch. You know, and we all get in the van, and we go swimming at the friend's pool party. And so those kids never had to use soccer as a way of getting out of a life they didn't want. That's why the best athletes used to be boxers. But once there was football, you started losing the best athletes in boxing because they had another way out. That's why the best basketball players, you know, come out of a culture like, this is my way out of poverty. This is my way out of a life I had. And so there's a sense that you have to let go. I want out of this life. So you have a pretty good life. And you know, you have enough, well, to, you know, dress nice and eat well. But you've got to, like, see apathy as a prison. Does that make sense? That will steal from you the life you're created to live. And I will tell you this. If you stay at Mosaic, you will not remain apathetic. Because there are a lot of things I'm not, but I'm a pretty intensely passionate person. I don't know if you know that. You know, and I had a friend of mine, Harvard grad, and he stopped spending time with me. And I said, hey, man, what did I do? He said, I couldn't stand the pressure of being more. So I just stopped hanging around with you. I took that as a compliment. You know, because, you know, like, if you stay in this space, and honestly, that's a part of it for me. A part of why I did my life in Mosaic is to create a place where people can't be less. Yeah. And where you, like, start living to be more. So I think you're in the right place. Being here today, sitting in the front, that's awesome. Like, you've already made some really, really good choices, but what you need some right now is some people that kind of pull you into a higher level of passion. It's going to be fun. Are you in love? Yeah, kind of, not really. You're working, you can't work on love. You can't, no, it's not like, you know, love is not like Legos. Okay, you know, love is like kerosene. You know, where you're out of control and you're in danger of being hurt. No. Wow, I feel like Dr. Phil. All right, you guys get together before you go? Awesome. And that's very, very cool. Thank you for the question. It's really beautiful. I wish you could be more helpful.
Faith, like, does that come from, like, your, like, excitement for the afterlife, your fear of the afterlife? Does it come from peace, love, like, where does that come from? How does it develop?
Yeah, you know, if you grew up in church, faith sounds like constipation. You know, like, I believe, you know, it's coming out, you know, and there's like this weird thing about, like, believing more, but it doesn't. You know what faith is? It's trust. I think the best translation for the word faith, and as the, like, that basic narrative is trust. As you trust God with your life, your faith increases. As you trust the things God says about life, your faith increases. And as you put that trust into action, faith increases. Does that make sense? And then later, when faith and trust have really, like, merged well, faith starts looking like courage. Because eventually that trust is going to press you to make choices that terrify you. And so faith is going to start looking like courage. So I'd say, like, level one faith is all about trust. Learning that God can be trusted. I didn't know why I believed the Bible. I spent 10 years working with drug cartels and the urban poor and in the world of Uzi machine guns and cocaine stacked to ceilings. And in that world, I learned how to trust what the Scripture said. began to learn to trust God with my life. And at the same time, that trust in God started looking like courage. Because I started making decisions I would have never made if I didn't trust in God. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. All right. Yes? Tell me your name again.
My name is Justin.
Justin. And then your name?
Mallory.
Mallory.
What is it fear God?
That's an interesting question. Are you asking that because you believe or because you do
Oh,
not
I
yet
do.
believe? Oh, that's
Can you
interesting.
repeat the question?
She asked, what does it mean to fear God? It's a great question. Well, anyone here not fear anything? I hope not, because not fearing anything is a sign of stupidity. Just thought I'd let you know before you raise your hand. In fact, at TED, one of the things that was really interesting, are you familiar with TED, Technology, Entertainment, Design? One of the atheists who spoke, who's a philosopher, said that he believed that fear was the driving motivation of all human innovation. And real interesting, because if you don't believe in God, fear is what you got. See, I believe love is the driving motivation of all human innovation. In the end, when you love somebody enough, you figure out how to save their life. And I think the first person who ever, called a snail escargot just wanted to feed their kids and keep them from starving to death. And I don't think it was fear-driven. I think it was love-driven. I think love is a much more powerful driver, but fear is a powerful driver. And so we know, so if you work from an atheist perspective, fear is the driving fuel of human innovation and action. And you can't escape the reality of fear, right? But what fear does is fear establishes the boundaries of your freedom. And so if you're afraid of heights, you stay low, right? If you're afraid of crowds, you stay alone. If you're afraid of people, and you're not here, I don't even know I'm using it as an example, right? And so fear establishes, so if you have claustrophobia, you stay out of enclosed places. So fear establishes the boundaries of your freedom. You with me? All right? So when the Bible says to fear God, it also tells us that perfect love casts out all fears. See, every other master, because what you fear is what rules over you. Every other master is cruel. That fear will control you. But when your fear is directed toward God, perfect love casts out all fear. He's the only one that when you fear him, and so because fear is a human realization that life is out of your control. And so the moment all your fear is directed toward God, who casts out all fear, now your only boundary is how God has designed you and created you to live. And so to me, fearing God is the source of freedom. Does that make sense? And because you got to do something, people go, I think it's wrong to fear God. I go, well, you don't seem to think it's wrong to fear everything else. Right? You're afraid of something. You're afraid of failure, you're afraid of the future, you're afraid of love, you're afraid of relationships, you're afraid of so many things. And isn't it really bad usage of fear to fear all these things that have no control over you? You are afraid of things that really you should have no fear of. In fact, what's really fascinating is, I guess I learned the other day that the spiders that, you ever go through spider webs and freak out? The spiders that build those webs are pretty much poisonous. Because the spiders that will kill you crawl on the ground. Yeah. Sorry. More fear we're dealing with. And so when you go through those cobwebs, it's a psychological fear. It's not a real fear. And the only way you can really get over that is just one night, just go out and say, I'm just going to walk through all the cobwebs I can to get over that fear. Because you realize, okay, there's no danger here. And what's so ironic is that we live our lives in fear because we do not live our lives in faith. And when we give our fears to God, when we fear God, who's the only one who is rightfully feared, and he's the only one who can be trusted with our fear, but the moment we fear him, all that fear disappears because perfect love casts out all fear. That's how you live.